Thanks for having me. This is my first time at FLINT, and this is not Andrew's fault. He's invited me for a long time, and it's just always been a little busy, and maybe the hour and a half drive down here was a little intimidating. But this won't be my last time here. This is meaty stuff. I like it a lot. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. I appreciate the hospitality and the conversations. My name is Brett Shumaker from Northumberland, Pennsylvania. Like I said, it's about an hour and 20 minutes or so north of here. I got a family of 5 kids. One of them's not there. My wife, I won't go through a lot of this stuff. I just want to tell you I'm a father of 5. Hopefully you get to meet some of the boys here shortly. That's my daughter, Tia. She's 23. So I had Tia from a previous marriage. She's 23. And then these last 4 with my wife, Kara. On top of raising the kids, which you all know is crazy, my wife and I have a ministry in Uganda. We go over there a couple times a year, at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, for about 2 weeks. And we serve orphans and widows over there. We got about 100 orphans that we're serving. And when I say orphan, sometimes their father exists, but he doesn't know where he is. There's a lot of those opportunities over there where children are displaced or being raised by their aunt and whatnot. So, like I said, my wife and I go over there and spend a good bit of time with those guys, and my wife really manages that. I don't do a lot until things get a little hairier. There's always questions that come up, and I often say a lot of times the things that come up in the ministry are sometimes more stressful than the things that come up at work, because it's so life and death a lot of times, and you're going into a poor country and you're spending time in the poorest parts of that country. You really get to see and experience some real challenges and some really, I don't want to say ugly things happen in those places. But God's given us a heart for that. We've been doing that for about 13 years, going over to Uganda. Why I'm here is I'm 3rd generation from Shumaker Industries, family business. My grandfather started in 1953. Our primary product line is the concrete mixer drums. It goes on the back of the truck. My grandfather back in the day saw that need of the concrete mixer drum wearing out, and he was a welder by trade, and a guy brought him an old truck with a drum leaking. What happens is the abrasive nature of concrete rolling around in those drums just wears them out. So the drum has to be replaced, and they don't need to replace the whole truck, they'll just replace the drum. But so like I said, I'm 3rd generation. This is our main product line. We've come up with some different products over the years. This is the load and go wash. It eliminates the guy having to get up. This has been our latest product. Eliminates the need for the guy to get up on the ladder. It's an automated wash system that the trucks drive through. If you're familiar with concrete, the truck comes under the plant. All the materials are loaded in the truck. And then before he leaves and goes down the road, he has to wash down that truck. Anything that's left on the truck will turn into a rock, and it'll fall off and hit your windshield. I always tell people, don't ever follow a mixer truck. It's like the worst thing to follow. They have a special insurance policy just for windshields. That's how often they break windshields. So our system turns that 10, 15-minute process of a guy getting up there and washing down his trucks, and it does it in a minute 20, using high-pressure water. It's a glorified car wash. 120 nozzles, 1,000 PSI, washing those areas that need to be cleaned on the truck. So that's been a really a beautiful product for us to kind of. It was a gift from God. So it was a gift. We got quite a few of them out there, like 600 and some of them out there. We just came up with this product. It's about 15 years old. We've been working on this product, and it's been transformational in terms of how it's affected the business and how it's affected our finances. We're an old business, but the drums are very much a commodity, very difficult to make money on. This product was a new product. We got a couple of awards for it for like the most innovative product, that helps the margins when you have something a little more innovative. I want to share with you a little bit about my testimony from a work standpoint. I came to the Lord late, 30 years old. Was walking with the Lord for about 9 years when the recession hit, the first recession, 2009. Up for those first few years, the first 9 years, I was working on a lot of things. As you shared there, it's a process, sanctification process that just takes time, rooting out those sins, making you aware of those sins, and so I was always praying, for my own salvation, praying for my own sanctification, praying for my wife, praying for my children. I never really prayed for the business, other than maybe to keep the guys safe. Pray for safety as we got to take this challenging job. I for some reason, and I know why it is now, but I didn't recognize it at the time, never prayed for the business in terms of, give us wisdom, help. I felt like praying for the business was a little bit like, God has a lot going on, there's like famines in Rwanda, and there's or Sudan, genocides in Rwanda, there's marriages that are going apart. Does he really need to hear me whine about, can we please make more money in the fourth quarter? I really wasn't happy with the third quarter results. It's like, does he really need to hear about that? I always felt like the business was my job to do. I might have thanked him for this job, but just pull your pants up, get to work, get it done. And that's where I landed, and that's where I thought God was, that was what I thought God wanted me to do. So I never really prayed about it, just thought it was my job to do. And but the recession changed all that. And, the recession, it changed it, and I didn't realize it was changing it, but come 2009, 2010, as many of us experienced, businesses came to a halt. There wasn't any work. We were chewing through our lines of credit. We had a ton of debt at the time. And we probably didn't lay off people quick enough. And my dad and I were running side by side. We were in the middle of a succession plan where I was taking over the company at the time, but we put it on hold during the recession. He goes, I don't even know if there's going to be a company left, And I was like, so we were all hands on deck just trying to keep the company afloat. I took it very personally because I was always probably the marketing end of things. My dad's an engineer, so I've always been on the sales end of things. And so when things weren't going well from a sales standpoint, we didn't have work, I really took that really personally. And I, at the time, was just trying to find something to do. We would take a swing at this, and I was working crazy hours, talking about working crazy hours, We lost a lot of, I had to let some guys go. Some guys would come to me, good guys that worked with me a long time, were like, Brett, we all took pay cuts. I can't make my mortgage payment anymore. I'm going to have to bounce and get a job. I'm like, oh, dude, I would bounce too if I was you. In fact, I'd probably bounce, but my name's on top of this building. So unfortunately, I gotta ride this ship to the bottom. And so I didn't blame it at all for bouncing because, it wasn't pretty. We all took pay cuts to the point where there wasn't a lot left, not a lot of meat on the bone. And the writing was a little bit on the wall. The bank was getting super jumpy. We were way outside our covenant. We owed them way more than we were making. And there was a point there. They already extended our line of credit once, and there was a point in 2010, I was praying. I was like, Lord, I always thought I was going to work at Shumaker Industries. I grew up there sweeping the floor. That's where I was going to work. My dad and I worked together side by side. It was like growing up on the farm. I just did whatever I could. I learned how to, sweep the floor, and then I learned how to cut with a selling torch, and I learned how to weld, and then I learned this job, and then I got into sales. So, this was my career path I thought I was on, and I said, Lord, I thought this was what you had for me, but if this isn't what you're having for me, my prayer was for myself. I said, help me do it with dignity. I was really worried I was going to, not do it well. My kids would see this. My wife would have to endure this massive shift, and I didn't know if possibly he was going to have me go into the ministry. I didn't know at that point. It was really a lot of unknowns. And at the end of that prayer, I tagged on this little piece that I didn't even know meant anything at the time. It was almost like a sarcastic comment. I said, but if your plan is to keep me at Shumaker Industries, Lord, it's sure going to take some kind of miracle. And I kind of was just throwing my hands up there. I said, it's going to take a crazy miracle because I lost my marketing guy, main sales guy. It was down to my dad and a secretary and maybe one other person in the office. I mean, we were hollowed out big time. We cut. And we owe the bank millions of dollars, and they're getting all bent up about it. It was bad. And I said, and I'm out of ideas. And I tried all kinds of ideas to try to keep the business running. I mean, we had tornado shelters that we were going to build because we build the drums. And I'm like, if you just cut those drums in half, we could build tornado shelters. And I pitched it to Tractor Supply because they had 1,100 stores in Tornado Alley. And they're slab-built homes down Tornado Alley, and that's why they get knocked off like golf balls when a tornado comes through. But I thought we could, I had ideas that were good. They just didn't work. And I had a lot of ideas. They just didn't work. None of them flew. And at that point, I was 40 years old, and I had a twitch in my eye all the time. I was not sleeping well. I was working around. I was working, or thinking about work. Not treating my family real good in that, just because of that. I was on 2 blood pressure medicines. I'd go in there to get my blood pressure checked, or we can't let you leave. I mean, you got to sit here until it comes down. And I had to sit there a couple times, and they come back and check it, and I'd be sitting there. I was like, well, it's not, I don't know. I'm not feeling that bad. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's your machine. And then they bring somebody else in. They're like, no, you got to sit there. So it was really bad, really high stress. Because I felt like it was on me, and I was taking it all on. And so this prayer of like, Lord, if you're going to keep me working at Shumaker Industries, it's going to have to take a miracle, was actually me handing the wheel off to God. And it was the first time I ever did that professionally. It was the first time I said to God, I need you. Just like I said I needed him 10 years prior to that because my life was a train wreck and I was in the middle of a mucky mess, and my first prayer was, God, I don't know if you exist or not, but if you exist, I need help. That was my first prayer. It sounds kind of bad now, as knowing how much he loves me and how, it was a little bit weak of a prayer, but it was that mustard seed of faith because he took it and ran with it, and the rest is beautiful. But I said that prayer to him, like, if you're planning on keeping me here, it's going to take a miracle. And I remember just saying that. I didn't even think much of it. Going to work the next day, going to work the next few days, things are happening. We'll get something come in. Like, okay, that's cool. We started getting these jobs, like from left field, like PP&L power plant calls, where we're in outage. The people that were building our bins didn't build them. We're in outage, and I don't know. Adam Zakarian from Danville. His a friend of mine. He's like, can you guys cut? You have a plasma cutter. Can you cut chromium carbide? I said, I hadn't even heard of chromium carbide. And it was like $5,000 a sheet. Anyway, they come down. They review our place. We're building these bins for them around the clock. Another one, the Tappan Zee Bridge going over to New York. They had a concrete plant on a barge that they bought from Europe, and the waves and the wind and everything tipped over a silo into the Hudson River. And you can imagine a trail of cement going right down the Hudson River, right past Manhattan. How bad that got? So they called me, like, we see you make silos. Can you be over here to look at this plant? And I'm like, yeah, maybe after the holidays. They're like, no, we need you here tomorrow. Anyway, long story short, we got all this work that God's hand was on. It was crazy. We started calling it manna from heaven. And to this day, we have a piece of our budget that we look at, and we're like, that's going to be manna. We're not sure what it is, but that's going to be manna from heaven. And, that was a big changing point because I saw God really starting to show up with things that we were asking him for in the business. We need work. It started our Thursday morning prayer, and that actually was not my idea. That was one of the employees that you would never have thought it would have came from. This guy smoked. At the time, he quit now. But he smoked a lot. He was tattooed up. And he's like, Brett, if we need work, why don't we just pray? And I'm like, yeah, we should be, right? So Thursday mornings, we still do it to this day. We have the prayer turned into more of a, we call it Devos now. We have different pastors coming in, different people come in, and sometimes we all share within the company too. And now we bring breakfast in and everything, so we can afford to. But it started out just praying for work. It started out just praying for work. We're praying before the meetings. Every meeting we start with prayer. It's been a shift because I realized God did want it. He wanted to be part of our business. I just wasn't letting him in. And he wanted to speak into the HR. I mean, I say HR is somewhere I've seen him in hiring. I've seen him show up crazy, bringing in people that I never would have even taken a swing at. If I was looking at their resume, I'm like, no, not that one. But then, God's just prompting us to, yeah, this is the one, And so, our sales guys aren't really necessarily coming from sales, but they love people and they love the Lord, and we've really built our upper management team. I really felt God was putting it on my heart. They have to, share that value of wanting to share the gospel. So that's been fast forward a little bit, coming out of that recession time. I'm sitting there at church, and I remember one time, and this was the beginning of a lot of prayers like this, Lord, why'd you keep Shumaker around? Well, what do you want from Shumaker? This is crazy. You're bringing us this manna, keeping us in business. Why? And, I prayed that prayer, and instantly I heard the Holy Spirit saying, I need you to foster an environment I can speak through. That's all he was asking. I want you to foster an environment I can speak through. And I know I don't save anybody. Nothing I say is going to save anybody. But being in this position, we can invite the Holy Spirit into these conversations. We can make time to get in the Word corporately. We can make time to share the gospel with our customers and vendors and so forth. So that was put on my heart. And in 2000, I don't know. I'll give you a timeline here. I wrote it down as timeline. So 2009, 2010, like I said, 2010 I turned the company over to the Lord. I got off the blood pressure medicine. 2011, and around 2012 or so, I started thanking the Lord. Thank you, Lord. What do you want from Shumaker? Did finish the deal with my sister and dad in purchasing the company. Felt right away, the pre-tithe tax on our earnings was something that just felt like that was a no-brainer of what we should be doing, and that was we've been very disciplined on that. It's just like a no-brainer. Seeing, like I said, in 2015, really seeing God speaking to HR. We started out that acts of love. We just were like, how do you glorify God through our business? What's that look like? I want to do it. I just don't know what that means. And we started out this acts of love thing, where we just were tracking acts of love. It was kind of weak. It didn't really work too much, but at least it was intentional. The sales guys, instead of just reporting their numbers and reporting those successes, what is an act of love that you did? Was there a nice letter that you might have sent somebody? Maybe a scripture you shared. So we started tracking that. It was a effort. But these were all efforts in getting us to where God wanted us to be. Like I said, during this period of time, we are having the devotions. I got involved in C12, and then we did start. So one time I'm like, Lord, I want to glorify you through this business that we have, but I can't quite wrap my head around what that's going to look like. And he hit me he's like, Brett, you have a marketing committee, you got a safety committee, you got a load and go production committee. And he's like, why don't you have a ministry committee? Get serious about this work. Get serious about, glorifying God, glorifying me through this work that you're doing, because we couldn't quite get traction. So now we got since then, we got a ministry committee, and we have to-dos, and we have rocks, and we have, this is what we want to this is what we're really feeling God is calling us to do. And it's really inviting other good Christian guys that are on my team. I don't even lead it anymore, and bringing us together. How can we glorify God through the business that He's given us here? This opportunity that He's given us to steward this business, and that was big, because now that was a big step, because now we're bringing in we have kindred minds working together for His glory. That kind of spun off. We have a prayer breakfast. We're in the concrete industry, so we're at the World of Concrete show, the National Ready Mix Concrete show. So we do prayer breakfasts there, and and we pay for it. Now, I have another buddy I'm in business that has a business, and we collaborated on this, and he very much motivated me to do this. And so we kind of co-host this event a lot of times. In 2022, we gave out these Bibles, these 250 Bibles. And it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn. I'm just kind of like showing you how God has used and convicted us and kind of used the company to glorify Him. But I gave out these Bibles with a Leatherman. These Bibles all had the customer's name on. And I said, these are my two favorite tools. I said, my Leatherman I grab for all the time when my wife gives me a to-do or whatever is going on. And I said, my Bible I grab for all the time when life hits me between the eyes and I'm spun out. And hopefully I'm grabbing for it before I get spun out. And it's just been a great tool. So I give these out to 250 customers. I say we, the marketing or the ministry committee did. And that worked out real well. We did give out to the vendors too, which was even, I think, I guess a better received gift. I mean, they were like, "Whoa, dude, what are you giving us stuff for?" And it's like, I think you could see our heart wasn't to try to buy their business or anything because they're selling us stuff. But I say all that. It's just like, turning the business over to the Lord was the first step. Sensing His direction, sensing where He wanted us to be was, a constant. I mean, it's just constant. So that didn't turn out real good. I didn't transfer over, evidently. That's just it, and that's okay. This was a graph that was kind of showing, it's kind of an interesting graph, but obviously it turned into something else. But it got encrypted or something. But it was a graph that showed, just the progression of the business, and you could see God's hand from the minute I turned it over. And I don't want to be like in the prosperity gospel here or anything, but, like you turn your business over to God and you're automatically going to be successful because there's been a lot of bumps But, man, I can see clearly, and I looked at that again this morning as I was coming here, and it just made me thank the Lord, just thank Him, because you could see His hand just blessing us, and I don't take any credit for it. It's been Him directing us, and the numbers have been amazing, and just allowing me to be a part of it's been amazing. I always say it's been His company since 2009. I ran the company into the ground prior to that, and since then I'm just an employee there. But this is just another product we're working on. I guess it's okay. We won't get into that because I don't want to get into it. I guess if I had to kind of wrap up and share some wisdom, or I was thinking about it. It's like, okay, that's a nice story and all, but what are some takeaways, or what are some things that maybe I learned and are learning? I would say this: know you're in a spiritual battle. Don't forget about that. You're definitely in a spiritual battle every day. If you were going to walk out those doors and go home, and you thought, okay, that's nice, I'm going to go walk out the doors, you'd walk out a certain way. But if I say you're going to walk out those doors and there's a few guys out there that might punch you right in the face, you're going to walk out there a little differently. You're going to walk out there like this, right? You're going to be looking where's this guy coming from? He's going to punch me in the face. And believe me, when we wake up and go to work, there's someone looking to punch us in the face. Satan is coming at us right away. And I constantly have to try to remind myself, I have these 3 sneaky sins. I call them sneaky. Some of them aren't too sneaky. You got lust. I got lust problems. I'm not going to deny it. I got materialistic problems. I have idols. People are like, "What, you have idols?" I mean, it just sneaks in. I'm looking. A long story, but I had to go Amish in 2018. My wife and I sold our boat, 2 boats, a camper, everything, because I realized all this stuff that it was just, I was praying to the Lord. I was like, "Lord, sorry I didn't have much time this week to get into devotions. It was a busy week." And He slammed me. He was like, "Are you kidding me? You're on your iPad an hour every night looking at whatever I'm looking at that day, whether it's truck bed liners, boats, fishing poles, camping stuff, tiki torches for the camper, whatever it is that I'm buying, that I'm in the mood to buy, I'm looking at it because I'm like a researcher and I want to make the right purchase. I mean, it's all like I justify it. It's my job to be, frugal here. And so I'm like researching the best one. And I realized, as I'm apologizing to the Lord about not having much time, I'm like, oh, I got idols. I got idols that are just, He showed me that. I didn't realize that. He showed me that. He's like, are you kidding me? You're on your iPad every night looking at stuff. And what's that? Oh, well, sorry, dude. That's good. So, yeah, I got lust, I got materialism, idols, and then pride. Pride is probably the sneakiest one of them all. And pride kept me from praying for work. I thought, I got this, and pride keeps me from, it's the sneakiest one. Because you kind of know when you fell into lust, and if the Lord's given me some discernment. I start to recognize these sins a little faster, but pride can still be the sneakiest one. I say probably the biggest thing is, as a man, I need to strive to stay humble and be very intentional of listening to God's voice. That's the two things I would share that are very important. And I can elaborate on that, but I don't know if I have much time to elaborate on that. Okay, good. So those are two things I think that probably I've learned through this. Know you're in a spiritual battle, and really be intentional at staying humble, and know your sneaky sins, and be very intentional about finding God or finding time to hear from God. And for me, that's very difficult. I have to be very, very intentional about that.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
This is a men's Bible. It's a men's study Bible. I can show you every man's Bible. And so it has kind of men's things. Yeah, footnotes and stuff. Yeah. And we put everybody's name on it. So it's been very interesting going to trade shows, and guys that I barely knew that got the Bible will be like, Brett, I got that Bible, and just to hear what God's doing. I mean, it's like my brother just died a week before that, and I would come into work and there's a Bible laying on my desk. I mean, that was a real story. Very, very interesting to see how God works through, a relatively small act of obedience. I just, financed it, and we sent him off, and God did the rest.
You got something? No. I have a few, but don't have much time.
Steve has one too, you missed it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's awesome you have a multi-generational company. What's your plans for handing the reins over and passing the baton to the next generation?
Well, that's a big one. Yeah. Again, I mean, you just gotta let God direct you through that. I don't really want to dictate that. I feel like it's very important for my kids to learn how to work. And I'm not killing it in that area. I think someone else should come up and maybe share how they're doing that well, because it's a soft spot for me, and I recognize it. But I know it's so important, because one of my favorite interview questions, whenever I'm interviewing anybody that's from the age of 18 to 30, I say, what did you do when you were 13, 14, 15 years old? I want to hear about what they did, about when they were, teenagers. Because if they learned how to work when they were teenagers, I'm not going to have to teach them how to work now. The kid that didn't do much all through high school and then went to college, got college paid for, and boom, he's out in the work world with this great degree, but never really worked. Now I got to teach him how to work. That's a train wreck. It never works. So I share that. If you got sons and they're going to go to work, they're probably going to get somebody like me that's going to ask them, what did you do when you were 13, 14 years old, 15 years old? What kind of high school, jobs did you do? What did you like to do? What was that? Probably not.
I got a question.
Is that a video game?
Yeah.
No. That's high score. 3 years in a row. Lockdown, man. Lockdown. Nobody beat me.
Just real quick as we end here, so you are very openly running your business as a Christian, outspoken, no apologies.
Yeah.
A lot of people think they can't do that. And
Yeah.
you have a lot of, I don't know, how many employees do you have? And
47.
Okay, so that's not insignificant. I mean, so how do you, navigate that? A lot of people just think that, well, we have separation of church and state, and we have separation of boss and Christ or something. I don't know how would.
I don't know.
A few words would
we
you
went
say?
through a lot of it when we did our employee handbook because we didn't do our employee handbook the way that they wanted us to do it. The HR consultant that we hired was not happy with us. But yeah, I felt like it was a little like you can get tripped out because I think Satan wants you to feel this way. He wants you to feel like, oh, you're gonna lose clients. You're gonna lose. It's the total opposite. I mean, I don't know who doesn't appreciate the fact that you're gonna pray for them. We haven't had any pushback. The devotions on the shop floor are optional. They can go have a smoke break out back and have their own little powwow. Nobody does. Even the guys that I didn't think would be really into devotions, they trickle in, they sit in the back. But no, I was fearful of that. I got to be honest. And I get fearful still of being too bold with our faith. And then I'm like, look what the Lord has done for you. I mean, I feel like the gentleman, shared his testimony. Look, why wouldn't you be, willing to glorify God openly? Look what He's done for you. And why wouldn't I want to share what's awesome? It's the best thing that could ever happen to anybody. I would be a jerk if I didn't share it. That's how I look at it. I'd be a jerk if I didn't share the gospel.